episode 726 of Longbox Heroes, the Lamborghini of Comic Book Podcast. I'm Todd, along with Joe. How are we doing today, Joe?
Better, better than earlier today, better than yesterday, better than, slowly getting better. Yeah.
Isn't that a Beatles song, Getting Better Every Day or something?
I could sing it, but I think they are an extremely litigious group. So instead, I'm going to sing Wonderwall by Oasis.
You know what I say about Oasis, but I can't say it on air.
They're great.
You know what I say about Oasis? Call me when it's the White Stripes reunion, as I always say.
Goodness.
If there's a 2-person band I want to come back, It's the White Stripes, not Oasis.
Yeah, I only know Oasis exists through my brother, and he's no longer with us. When everyone was kind of freaking out about the Oasis reunion, there was one guy, I can't remember who it was, on Twitter. It's so tough to keep track of everyone. There's literally hundreds of people on there. But he's like, I didn't know people actually liked Oasis. I just thought they were like a fad. And I'm like, well, again, I did, but I had a brother who was like, oh, this is their 9th album, which is, a retread of this. And I'm just like, Oasis, huh? All right, that's who you picked. Good for you.
Right. So I came into one of my chat groups in my text, and they're like, oh, did you get your Oasis tickets? And I said, I think I know 2 Oasis songs. Plus, I don't count all the Coldplay songs that I thought were Oasis. And they were laughing. And they said, I think everybody knows the 2 Oasis songs that you're talking about. So, but I'm not a big Oasis guy.
Yeah, Champagne Supernova and Woohoo.
Sure, I know the Woohoo song.
Yeah. So, enough banter, Todd. What do we have on the show this week?
Even though I love banter. In news, artists' rights and royalties. Slim Newsweek. The Rob Watch returns.
Oh, I love the Rob Watch.
I love conventions. The latest edition of Beckie's My Walk Down Lois Lane. What we read last week, which was a Saga 68, Nice House by the Sea #2, and 30 years in the making, the 0 Hour 30th Anniversary Special. What we're looking forward to this week, Todd and Joe have issues where we reread Gail Simone's Secret Six, and this week we're doing, I hope I have this right because I didn't change my notes, Secret Six 18.
That's the issue I have on my desk.
Yay! And then there's no TV or movie talk. But Joe, we're gonna push one last time the pick'ems because football, she a coming, Joe.
All right. Good for football.
Yeah.
I'm happy that they're there. Right.
Yeah. You just hope everybody has fun, right?
I hope this is the Raiders' undefeated season.
I have to do my prediction, Joe. Don't be ladling my warmth.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm on your side when it comes to that sort of thing, right?
I heard you always pick the Raiders. So
yes, over everyone. Now, news is interesting this week, right? Because it's 2 stories about one person on 2 different Marvel ventures,
right?
And I think it's something that we may have discussed on the show before. We've just discussed in general on the soon-to-be network, right? I'm always creator first, above publisher,
or character.
Or character, I got a couple characters I got a soft spot for, right? Like, right. I'm always going to buy Amazing Spider-Man. I'm always going to buy Daredevil. I'm always going to buy whatever. But then, that's sometimes how I find a new creator, writer, artist, and then I follow them and I support them and I become fans of them. I always harken back to, my days as an attention deficit criminal being a fan of ECW. I never bought the ECW company logo shirt. I always bought the Taz or the Sabu or the Raven shirt of the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, that money is going to them as opposed to whatever shell game Paul Heyman was doing to pay Peter to rip off Paul, you know?
Right.
So it came out last week in regards to the secondary Marvel puzzle game on your phone, Marvel Snap, not unlike the much superior Marvel Puzzle Quest. Anyway, I kid. We lost a lot of us Marvel Puzzle Quest people have lost good players to Marvel Snap.
Mm-hmm.
So it came out, like, in the game, you can get variants of certain characters in the game. And in the game, it'll say by who the artist of who it was by, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, the art specifically is for Hulkling. The art is specifically by the artist Jen Bartel. And, somebody asked, somebody tweeted at her and, said, like, hey, this art's awesome, right? And she replied, and I'll read the whole thing here. Wish I actually got paid for these. LOL. And it's that LOL, right? But then she kind of extrapolated a little bit, saying it makes perfect. It's actually perfectly legal because we have to sign over any rights on any licensed art that we make for mega corporations who own these characters, but it's definitely not ethical to shaft artists like this. Some companies paid us for usage even if they didn't have to. They don't legally have to because we, the artists, don't own the rights for any of the work that we've done, but it'd go a long way to extend some of that goodwill, considering they promote these rare variants explicitly using our names. So that's that. And again, imagine if the artist who actually made the art that they make millions of dollars off even got to see a fraction of a percentage of that. A cover I might have been paid $800 for that will make them 100 times that amount, and they never send me an additional dime. And,
Right.
There were people drawing parallels to, like, that was the impetus for Todd McFarlane to begin to leave Marvel because he saw, like, his art for Spider-Man #1 on T-shirts, and he never got a dime, let alone didn't even get a copy of the shirt with his art on it, right?
Right. And you can even go back as far as some people say that was a big thing with Jack Kirby when he left, because he saw it starting to show up on merch and he wasn't getting paid for it.
Right. So kudos to Jen Bartel for being very vocal and very open about this, talking about her page rate. Kudos, right? A lot of people would not address those sort of things,
Right. Mm-hmm. Afraid they wouldn't get another job.
Sure. So then later on that same week, it came up because she had been doing covers for the recently canceled Rainbow Rowell She-Hulk book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, like, hey, there was an issue solicited that you were supposed to do the cover on, and then that cover never came out. She gets, her covers sell books, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's done a bunch of stuff recently for DC as well. And then, like I said, the She-Hulk one doesn't come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she replies, I have been working for Marvel I'm paraphrasing. I've been working for Marvel for 4 years. The very few times I asked for even a small pay raise, I was emphatically told no. What would you do if your employer never gave you a modest salary bump in working for them for that amount of time? And then other artists chimed in and said, like, I've been there since 2015, and I've been there since this time. And, we all just kind of have to accept these things if we want to work on the big two, right? Now, granted, I will say there were several artists. Dan Raposa specifically is one who's done Spider-Man variant covers and stuff like that. Nobody came out and said DC, and I'm not saying that DC is doing a great job, and, the Rob Watch actually kind of sort of deals with something similar like this. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, man, like, if you're Marvel and you're DC, like, and somebody comes to you and says, like, hey, like, my covers, like, I could prove to you that my covers sell. Could I get, like, an extra, like, shekel? and they say no,
Mm-hmm.
like, obviously Marvel's definitely in the position that they could do whatever they want, because if you don't want to draw for them, they got 15 people that'll draw a similar style to you. The one that I kind of get bummed out on is like her art that they're using in the Marvel Snap game, that they're like very clearly saying this is a Jen Bartel variant.
Mm-hmm.
That like it's extra rare and special for you to get. And I don't play Marvel Snap. I don't know if there's like in-game currency that you spend to get that specific thing, right?
Right. You don't know how you get them, so.
Like, I can tell you in my beloved Marvel Puzzle Quest, they have like alternate costumes, quote unquote, for characters. And there's a bunch of them that I'm not going to say look like the Scotty Young, like, designs of these characters, but it's the Scotty Young designs of these characters. And nowhere in there do they say this is the Scotty Young design of these characters. It just says it's the chibi version of these characters. Now, I'm no art aficionado, but I very clearly know the difference between chibi style, which is more of an over-exaggerated, much smaller body, much larger head, almost looking like a Funko Pop, if you will, as opposed to literally the design that Scotty Young has done.
Right.
But Marvel has done things recently where they've kind of celebrated Scotty Young's art and done like 30th anniversary variants for his stuff, or whatever it is, specifically for his variants. But I don't know, like, if you're gonna like use the artist's name and selling things for like in-game purchases and stuff like that, like, throw him a buck, I guess.
Right. I'm with you. Like you said, especially if you're like, hey, this is X person's, thing that, you're kind of using them. And they talk about this, she talks about this, and a couple other people talk about this, but it's the contracts that they sign. They pretty much give away like all like their rights to anything because they want the work at Marvel. Like when you're a young up and comer, you're going to sign that and you're going to do it and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. So it's I'm not going to victim blame because like, you took the job, you signed the contract, but Marvel especially is notorious for it. Cause I've talked to some people who work at DC and they're a little better. They're a little better from what I hear, but man, oh man, I hear like, especially since Marvel has been taken over by Disney, they've become tight and like, litigious, as like you said before. So I don't know. I would like to see them get their money because the people who, built up all that stuff and you work it and you make from it and you grind away on that one piece they did. And like you said, make X and like times amount of dollars and they got paid 800 or 1,000. But I guarantee you if, that was like a Jim Lee piece, and I know he works for DC, but you get my meaning. Like they would have more, leverage than Jen would because the name, the pedigree and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just think it's never going to happen because they talk about it. You're never going to have a union. It's just not going to work because they're freelancers or work for hire or whatever. And I think we're going to be long gone, Joe, and whoever's sitting in these chairs doing a podcast like us in 50 years are going to be saying the same thing.
I will say, unless you work out a better deal and maybe, so much of comics comes back to wrestling and so much of wrestling comes back to comics for us. And I really like Jen Bartel's art, right? Mm-hmm. When there were the Hulk covers, the She-Hulk covers, rather, I would typically go toward hers. They were very eye-catching, the design on them, so on and so forth, right? Very eye-catching. It was a book I was getting anyway, but when given my choice of covers, I would get those. That being said, maybe it's time for a creator like a Jen Bartel or whomever to go and strike out on their own, whether they have the time or not. And it's different when you're another creative type versus an artist. If you're an artist, you're not a writer, you got to find someone to work the project for you. But like, go away from Marvel or DC or Image or whoever might be short shrifting you on pay, or you got worked into a bad contract with them. And when that contract comes up, It's negotiation time and they don't give you that bump that you feel you deserve, take your trade elsewhere. And if you're as good as you feel you are, and a lot of times I feel that these creators are typically are, there's a very small percentage of comic book creators that are working on a printed level on a major company, and I'll say like a top 10 company, right? That they're not good. Comics isn't a business that's built on nepotism, that like you get a job because my brother is like the president of the company sort of thing, you know? So Jen Bartel, go out there, go to DC, go to Image, go to another company, and shove it in Marvel's face.
Right.
Become a big star elsewhere. And then make Marvel come running back to you.
Yep.
And then now you got them over a barrel. And now you name your price.
I'll say this on the raises, though, because I'm not belittling Jen Bartel's place in comics or art, but she's not, like you said, she's not the big names and stuff like that. And the company's mottos are kind of like, we'll find somebody else to do this work for the price that we're. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are a line of people behind you that will do this. So the raise one is tough. That I've seen, because I've known some creators who were like, oh, like, please, can I have some more kind of a deal? And it's like, do you want to work? Kind of, blah, blah, blah. But that, and when I say contracts, they don't really have, when you're a freelancer, you don't have a contract per se. Is like you're an exclusive. An exclusive will run for 2 years or a year or whatever. And if you're exclusive, you usually get benefits and dental and health and stuff like that. I don't know how they do it, whether you sign the contract or you sign, like, I remember back in the day, it used to be the paycheck was it. And like on the back of the paycheck, it said, if you want this money kind of a deal, you'd have to endorse it. And that was illegal and binding. Like they would have legalese on the back of it that you were giving up your rights and stuff like that. It was like, all right, if you want to have your rights, you're not going to get paid. So I don't know how they're doing it now. I might have to ask about that. But so the contract thing is iffy. It might just be like a 1099 kind of thing. I don't know. I'm going off into the weeds on this, but it's not as easy sometimes as people think, if you get my meaning.
Right. But again, obviously when somebody like Jen Bartel comes out, very public about what's going on, giving numbers, giving time frames, giving that sort of stuff, it makes you think, and it makes you want to investigate a little bit more, put your Detective Comics hat on and figure it out, right?
Yep.
But speaking of other artists and other companies.
Ask not for whom the rob trolls. The rob trolls for thee. And now, the Rob Watch.
It's the return of the Rob Watch. Now, I'll just kind of say this, and this is going to be treated as that Astro. We're gonna act as though this is that Astro City 1/2 issue, where the headline ends up being like "Shark stolen from zoo returned" sort of thing, right?
Right.
So Shelby Robertson, inker on many comics in the comic book industry, comic book creator in their own right. You might know them on like stuff like Morbid Angel. They've done other stuff. They got a long history of things, right? So when the Rob's Bloodstrike Battle Blood got collected, Bloodstrike Battle Blood is the book that was kickstarted, and then that's a whole other kettle of fish, right?
Right.
So that book comes out, and they list in the credits everyone who worked on the book. And the inker on the book, Shelby Robertson, was omitted from the list of inkers.
Right.
And they tweeted it out, and the Rob replied, "I apologize, and I take full responsibility for not catching that. I will rectify it on additional printings." And that's the end of that chapter, right?
Yep.
Or is it, Todd?
Could be.
Okay. So this is the same The Rob that on the first edition of his Last Blood Whatnot book, he misspelled the name of the inker on the cover. Maybe on purpose, maybe to make a different variant, that if you got this one, maybe you need a copy with the guy's name spelled correctly on it. The same Rob who likes to tout that he's the only one who inks his own stuff except when he's late on a G.I. Joe book and they need a different inker for every page in the book?
Hey, listen, he wanted to work with all his favorite inkers. That was a special occasion.
Okay. And that's great. You've acknowledged your mistake. You've apologized. And you're going to put my name in additional printings of this book. Who's to say there's going to be additional printings of this book?
The demand, Joe. The sheer demand. Don't you know who drew that book? Come on. And wrote it.
And maybe inked it? At least if I read the credits of the copy I have. I don't have this book.
I'm glad that he's going to be doing this, because if there's anything I know about the Rob, is that he loves to share credit, Joe. That's all I'm going to say. You know, with the scripter, love sharing credit with them.
Now, I'm not saying that the Rob intentionally left this person's name off of this book, but the person says, my work as an inker is all over this book's interior. No name credit given either. Copy editor must have dropped the ball. This has only happened one other time in my 30 years in working in the industry.
Oh.
Both times we're working with the Rob.
I was going to say, I feel bad that other time. It was just a fluke, but not. Oh, my God. I don't know, Joe.
What's the old saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, won't get fooled again?
Yep.
Okay.
Once is happenstance, two is a coincidence, Joe. If it happens again, three's a pattern.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to be buying no Blood Strike Battle Blood, but I'm certainly going to be seeing if that book goes to a second printing.
That's going in your files to look for.
And I'm certainly going to see if to see if Shelby Robertson's name is in the second printings, right? I don't know. Seems like I said, one time I'll give you, two times, let's raise the red flag. And that's the thing. Shelby Robertson the first time apparently didn't say nothing.
Right.
And it was the second time, you know?
Right.
Oh goodness.
That spotlight. Love standing next to people in it, Joe.
So again, like I said, we shall certainly see in regards to all of this. Hopefully, this was just a mistake that happened twice, and hopefully the Rob does make good on his promise to resolve this. You know?
Yeah.
And go follow Shelby Robertson on social media at Shelby Wankobi. Shelby Wankenobi.
Okay.
All right.
Very Star Wars-y.
Yes. Definitely go check them out just to see what they're up to over on social media and so forth. But hey, there's conventions this weekend.
Right.
Big one. Rose City Comic Con, Portland, Oregon. This is a biggie. This is like, if Emerald City Comic Con ain't your deal, then this better be your deal, because, you know, it's crazy to think that Portland gets like such two big like corporate-y owned conventions in their neck of the woods. One at the beginning of the year, one here like in the the end of the third quarter of the year. And because it's, you know, Northwest area, you know, a lot of those creators that live up that way are going to be at this convention, and it's a biggie. Bendis is going to be there. I don't think Bendis has been at anything in forever.
Right.
Chip Zdarsky, Chris Bacallo, Chris Roberson, David Finch, Greg Rucka, who, friend of the show, Dave Puente mentioned that Lazarus is coming back next year. Rucka announced it officially.
Oh, wow.
Just said coming 2025, first half, January, whatever. Carl Kessel of the famous Kessel Run. Kelly Sue DeConnick, Mark Russell, Mike Mignola, Simon Bisley, Sean Gordon Murphy. It's a who's who.
Literally, yes.
Yeah. And then this weekend, not a comic book convention, But Colossal Con East, if that's your sort of thing, comes to the Poconos this weekend at the Kalahari Resort in our neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to go to breakfast with young Ed Saturday morning, reach out to myself or Brett or DJ. Sadly, I'm not going to be able to join young Ed for breakfast. But if you want to meet the famous young Ed of Hayabusa and you're local, I'm not going to dox where they're going to eat breakfast, but you can certainly reach out to them and find out and go meet young Ed and Brett and DJ as well, you know.
I wanted to go, but my lifelong dream to have breakfast with young Ed, but I can't do it.
Yeah, it's a busy weekend. Like I said at the beginning of the show, things are getting better, but then things are getting busier as the weekend comes up, you know?
Right.
But the links to those conventions will be in the show notes, along with information about the soon-to-be-named network at soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. Anytime any of the shows in the network go live, of course, you could find them at their own individual websites. Of course, you could find them through the podcatcher of your choice, but you could find them all in one handy-dandy stop, and that would be soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. And that includes, of course, this show that you're listening to right now, Longbox Heroes, Longbox Heroes After Dark, Puzzle Warriors 3, Profane Arguments, Final Wrestling Place, At Odds with Wrestling, We Need Wrestling, Wings on Wings, Porch Talk, and maybe Hayabusa Speed? I don't know. That might be a real show. Who knows? Are there any new helmets this year? Are we going to get a return of No Chance in Helmet before the football season begins?
I don't think so. I think the Helmet Podcast days are behind us.
Well, if you want to go back and listen to that show that Todd and Tim and Marcus from over at Final Wrestling Place did 2 years ago, a boutique show, once in a lifetime.
Marcus's dream podcast
finally comes true, and every time he wants to re-scrape that surface, it's always, I got something better to do, you know?
I got to go have breakfast with young Ed. Can't be doing Helmet podcasts.
Oh, my goodness. But like I said, anytime any of the folks from those shows go on other shows and they let me know they went on those shows, we'll certainly let you know over at soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. Be sure to check out our friends and some of the other stuff that they're up to in and around the internet. Go check out Mike Sterling's blog over at progressiveruin.com. Go check out our friend Kevin's blog over at HellionsTeam.com. Go check out Rick Williams' The Chop Shop at freekaratechops.storenvy.com. He's got like little resin figures and pins and stickers of all sorts of sci-fi, fantasy, wrestling assorted things. Jason Sandberg's Jupiter is still available a la carte over at his Indiegogo page. Chris Runt's Battle Monsters is still available through his website, fortressofcomicnews.com. Our friend Davey from the band Cave People is doing his own self-published comics over at cavedomaincomics.com. Will you be the one who supports his next tattoo?
That's what he wants to be known for, tattoos, Joe.
I guess. I don't know. But if you do not have a comic book store in your area, or you do not have a good comic book store in your area, let our store be your store. Comics on the Green. We have the Facebook page linked up there. Anytime the store is closed because of the Italian festival, they'll let you know. Anytime the books are going to be running late, they'll let you know. But typically the run, like the trains, the books have been running on time lately.
Yes, sir.
Got nothing to worry about there. You want to sign up for the mail order subscription service, you could certainly do so. Get your book shipped to you weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And if you do, there's a chance you can get a sketch on the package from our good friend Beckie, who we're going to turn things over to now for My Walk Down Lois Lane.
Welcome back to My Walk Down Lois Lane. Let's do a murder mystery. This is issue 16 from 1960, so let's dive in. Perry calls Lois and Clark into his office and tells them to change into the outfits he's bought them. He wants Lois and Clark to pose as a butler and a maid for famous horror actor Carlos Floyd, who recently married society heiress Edna Van Cleve. They just got back from their honeymoon, and he wants the inside scoop, so he's sending Lois and Clark to their mansion on Skull Island, which is just outside Metropolis. TMZ wishes they could do this. Lois is afraid of Carlos because he's typecast into playing murderous villains and lives on an island literally shaped like a skull, but Clark tells her she's imagining things. The Floyds are throwing a big party Saturday night. No murderer does that. While changing the bedsheets, Lois meets Carlos, who asks her to bring up a tray of lunch because his wife is unwell. Lois runs to tell Clark that Carlos is handsome and sweet, and Clark tells her she doesn't need to think the worst all the time, even though Lois is literally fighting for her life in like every issue of this comic. Meanwhile, Carlos is using recordings of his wife's voice to answer Lois's knock, using mannequin arms to retrieve the tray from Lois, and smears lipstick on cups so people will think that Edna is fine and enjoyed her lunch. Lois helps Clark in the butler's pantry and mentions calling for a doctor, only to be dismissed and told to be a maid, not a snoop. She's told to go hang decorations for the party, and Clark polishes all the silver in 5 seconds so he can sneak off and take highly illegal photos for Perry's article. Later that night, Carlos entertains several close friends, including his wife's lawyer, and mentions to them his wife is too sick to join them, so Lois's suspicion grows. In the morning, Lois is told to vacuum Edna's bedroom while she bathes, and it shows Carlos with another recording making splashing noises in the bathroom. Lois hits the closet door with a vacuum, and Edna falls out. Before she can scream and call the police, she realizes it's only a mannequin in a dress and a wig. Later that afternoon, she sees Carlos rubbing lotion on the back of Edna while she's sunbathing on the balcony. Lois believes that's the mannequin and hatches a plan to empty out the sunscreen to see if he notices. That night, while entertaining again, Carlos tells a different group of friends that his wife is too sick to join them. The next morning, Lois witnesses Carlos pretending to rub lotion on his wife's back, and now she's convinced she's onto something. She runs to tell Clark it seems like Carlos has murdered his wife for her money, but Clark dismisses her. At the Saturday night party, Lois tells Clark if he's too chicken to do investigative journalism, she's going to do it on her own, and sneaks off to find the mannequin on the balcony. She changes into the clothes and wig, and as a shadow appears in the bedroom, she hears, "I shot you in England, I missed, and now you'll die," and she's shoved off the balcony before she can see who it is. Superman shows up to catch her and brings her inside, only to apprehend the wife's lawyer at the request of Carlos. He has set up a string and a camera attached to the mannequin Lois messed with to catch who really killed his wife. While on their honeymoon, his wife was murdered, and instead of reporting it, he hatched a plan to catch the guy. Every night, he entertained a new group of friends and told them his wife was too sick to trick the murderer into thinking he had somehow failed. It was his wife's lawyer, because the lawyer had gambling debts, and he thought he could get money from her will. Superman knew about this the entire time, because he read Carlos's diary locked in a wolf safe while he was snooping around as a butler, but didn't tell Lois for no reason at all. The issue ends with Lois thanking Superman for helping her, and joking to him that Clark had to be a butler for a week for nothing. Like last week's story, this issue is printed in the 1963 Lois Lane Annual No. 2. The Superman Family Annuals are a fantastic way to get all of the wackiest stories, and most of them are inexpensive. So far, I've used this annual to tell 3 stories, and honestly, I could go and tell the rest of them, and they're equally as entertaining. Maybe I'll pick one more from here. Tune in next week for more.
Thank you very much, Becky. Now, I didn't get a chance to look at the art on this one, but I have a feeling who Carlos Floyd is supposed to be.
Okay.
I don't know who Edna Van Cleef is supposed to be.
Okay. Is it Count Floyd from SCTV?
No, it's not Count Floyd.
No, but I will say this. I feel like I understand this issue because if I had $1 for every time I was tricked by a fake pair of mannequin hands, I'd have $38, Joe.
Oh, goodness. Very specific number there, yes.
Yes.
All right. So, again, thank you very much, Becky. Always enjoy these jaunts, if you will, down these old-timey comics that you so enjoy. But we're not going to go that far back. We're just going to go back to last week from what we read. Todd, where would you like to begin?
I would like to start with Saga 68 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. We get a little bit into Alana's past, like we see her as a child, which may have like some of the stuff that influenced her to become the the person that she was. We meet her father and stuff like that. So I found that interesting. And then basically this is another issue of like seeing all the pieces in place, because now Lana gets to meet Hazel's new friend Emesis, who's like one of the spider characters that we've seen before, and how Hazel and her interact, and that runs throughout the issue. Then we get to be reintroduced to Petrichor, who they knew from the prison that they were imprisoned on years ago, and how she's dealing with the ramifications of stuff happening to her lover, and that kind of goes on. And then basically the gist kind of leads up to how Hazel is worried about young Prince Robit, because he's been watching the newscasts and what's going on in the robot kingdom, and I don't think he's taking it very well, because some interesting things are happening. But I will say this is more of a slice of life kind of issue, moving the pieces once again where they need to be, to like, because obviously things are going to happen from this, or people are going to meet up. But I feel like this is just kind of, getting plot from point A to point B, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Obviously Saga returned last month. It's back here. We're 10 plus years in, however long this book has been going on for. And again, that's crazy to think about, right? Mm-hmm. And we kind of sometimes neglect to mention that the book is being told through narration by Hazel, but it's obviously a Hazel who is older than the Hazel that we're seeing in the book.
Right.
And through her own narration, she's giving clues about what is going to happen to some characters, what is going to happen to some of the relationships of some of these characters, specifically herself and her mother, and those sort of things. But the one thing that you didn't mention is they talk about her new friend Emesis went and did the Windy Tooth experience, which is kind of like, sounds like this world or universes, whatever, of like a day camp for troubled kids.
Okay.
And, Emesis says, oh, well, it helped her, but maybe from the narration, we don't know if it really helped her. And then the cook who's there kind of says to Alana, like, oh, yeah, you should definitely send Hazel to it. So that's like one of the few times that we've gotten an in-story kind of tease of something like that, at least in a long time. An in-story tease of something like that. Like, okay, that's going to come back. Mm-hmm. Like, it's very specific, very definitive, very whatever. And it just didn't feel like it was out of place, but it felt like definitely not a red herring, but definitely feels like, okay, we're mentioning it in this way, so this thing is going to become bigger than what we had previously, like, this new thing, 68 issues in, that we've never heard of before, is going to have this a change to the characters, I think.
Right, it's going to have ramification. It's not a throwaway line kind of a deal.
Right, exactly.
Right, and I feel like, too, that they're setting something up with Alana and this guy that keeps showing up. Do you know what I mean? Like, she keeps saying, and Hazel keeps saying, like, she was, after the father wasn't ready for a relationship kind of, but I feel like that's the red herring, that maybe Alana is ready to take that next step and be in a relationship. And I think that's kind of where it's going with that guy character who's in the circus/carnival with them. But once again, I could be wrong, but like you said, it's all told from future, perspective Hazel. So we'll see.
Right. And he's reading the books that she likes. They had the conversation. And we're being led to believe that something more is going to happen between them. And obviously that's going to tend to put your mind into the situation of, okay, there's going to be some sort of romantic entanglement. But if you've been a reader of Saga, or at least a listener of us talking about Saga, that never really goes the way that it's supposed to go, right?
Right.
Okay. So one of the other books that we both read from this past week would be The Nice House by the Sea, #2, written by James Tinian IV, with art by Alvaro Martinez Bueno. So we get a lot of exposition from the previous set of characters and the new set of characters. They still run through like the little blurbs for each character of like what their name is, what their age is, what their nickname is, and where Walter met them. Because it is Walter that we're talking about here, correct?
Right, but these are the characters from Nice House on a Lake that we're talking about.
Right, and I always find it interesting here that we're finding out a lot of them were like either met in Brooklyn or Madison, Wisconsin.
Right.
And it's like two more diametrically opposed places there could never be.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're getting a lot of that laid out here. There's discussion about Oliver and who the new Oliver is. But the main crux of this issue is a dog shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ordered a dog. But there's now a dog in a crate in a kennel who's there. And that gets some, I guess, dissension amongst the people. We get information that, we can't request this sort of thing because we've tried it before. And they're like, okay, well, that doesn't break the 10-person rule, but does a dog count as a person? And then nobody is fessing up to be the one who ordered the dog, quote unquote, to be delivered there. So, obviously we do get the bit at the end of what the deal with the dog is, and that's spoiler territory, right?
Right, which kind of leads in to the ending of issue 1 of Nice House by the Sea, because we end up, you know what I mean? Like it's told out of time because the ending was a cliffhanger, and this explains how we got to that cliffhanger, if that makes any sense.
Right, because in the previous issue, there was the bit where the person who kind of controls the switchboard, whose name I forget, he can create like what the weather is and how nice it's going to be. And there was a storm on this day when the dog arrives. And they're like, well, maybe, dogs are typically spooked by this sort of thing. Maybe we should turn off the storm. And for whatever reason, they couldn't turn the storm off.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're getting a lot more information of this. And this issue 2, a little bit more difficult to sell you on without having read issue 1. Whereas opposed to Saga, I feel, because there's more previous issues that, like, not to say that, like, you and I need to be sold on this, but maybe it's tougher for us to sell, like, oh, no, jump into issue 2 on this. You can't. Unfortunately, the Nice House, whether it be by the lake, the previous one, or by the sea, are absolutely books that you could just not jump on in the middle of.
Right.
You got to get issue 1, you got to get issue 2. You can't just jump in on issue 3 and hope for the best. We talked last week about how sometimes, comic books are a little impenetrable sometimes to some people. And I think superhero comics are much easier to penetrate into than a book like this, Nice House by the Sea, or Saga, where those are the books, like, they have the good word of mouth. They are very good books. But if you ain't on in the beginning, you got to start from the beginning to get caught up.
With this issue, because I like both books, like Nice House by the Lake and Nice House by the Sea. But because this issue had none of the characters from Nice House by the Sea, it was all rehash of Nice House by the Lake. And they even have the character guide in the back, which helped me a lot. It makes me feel like you had to read that because they're talking about like what happened to Walter and this, and then they like explicitly say it's been years we've been in this house. Do you know what I mean? Like we've been doing this, and we've even counted the days and stuff like that we kind of know of. And I'm like, all right, now at this point, I believe Nice House by the Sea is too intertwined with Nice House and Lake. And it was a bit confusing for me because I had to latch onto my brain from a book from like a year ago. And some of that muscle memory did kick in. But I would say to anybody who's even reading Nice House by the Sea, maybe go get Nice House by the Lake. You know what I mean? And then we'll see when it's over how easily I grasp it. I mean, it's great. I like it. It's tense. Some interesting things, but little confusing, especially like when I say with this, when it's everyday people and there's no costumes with symbols on them that I could just grab, if that makes any sense. It's like, oh, these are just ordinary people with ordinary names. Now I have to keep 20 characters in my head, like going, and it's just it's going to take a little bit.
Yep.
So
we had one more book that we both read. and that would be the 0 Hour 30th Anniversary Special, written by Ron Mars and Dan Jurgens, with every DC writer or artist from the 90s.
Right.
So how we talked about how comics may be impenetrable at times.
Mm-hmm.
They get there eventually, but if you are not familiar with the hows and the whys in Comics 0 Hour Happened, a book that came out and has been very rarely mentioned in DC continuity 30 years ago,
right,
you might have some problems with this book.
Mm-hmm.
It was good because it's stuff that I don't revisit on a regular basis, but it was my first big DC event, so I do have very fond memories of it, and I do remember it somewhat well, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
God, I don't even want to go back to my first DC event.
Right. Well, you were reading a little bit before me, right?
No, I know, but I'll say this. I'm with you, but even as a 0 hour, story, because it's not, without giving too much away, it's not. Because it's an homage to 0 Hour. Because even when they finally do explain, like, I'm confused up until the moment that they explain it. Like 3/4 of the book, I'm like, okay, how is this happening? And then, boom, they go, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and that's kind of why we're getting a redo of 0 Hour. And I'm like, okay. But that being said, it was like putting on, a pair of old comfy shoes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Where it was like, oh, okay, I see Jack, I see this character, and I see all the characters. The best way to describe this is what would you call it? An Elseworld story. If all the changes they made in the 90s didn't revert.
Yeah.
It's a what if Superman didn't come back? What if Batman didn't come back? What if Green Arrow didn't come back? And that's kind of like the world that kind of drew me in. The only thing that I will say, it threw me off again, seeing Jack Knight drawn by Dan Jurgens and anybody else, because I've always have him as Tony Harris in my head, even back when we did it on Previewing the Past. And they did it's 30 years to 0 Hour. And they had the poster for everybody. It was Dan Jurgens again. And my brain just goes, I can't fathom seeing Jack Knight drawn by anybody else. But that's my only peeve. So.
Yeah. Again, like I said, this was really good. That you could tell that the creators, specifically Ron Mars, specifically Dan Jurgens, really love this period of time of comic books. Nobody loves, I think, Kyle Rayner more than Ron Mars. And I think we're okay that we can kind of talk about the ending a little bit, where, so it gets retconned in the Jeff Johns books that the reason that Hal Jordan turned evil is because the Parallax entity was trapped inside of the Green Lantern power battery.
Yeah, but when he became, who was it?
Parallax,
he absorbed it all.
Right. So we don't find that out until years later, almost 12 years later after the fact, when Jeff Johns wanted to bring Hal Jordan back as the one true Green Lantern, kind of shunts poor Kyle to the side. He ends up being a White Lantern for a little while. And,
he has to clean the slate of the wrongdoings that Hal did.
Yeah. But if this is believed to be a 0 Hour era storyline, and the last page says, like, not the end or to be continued, this makes me wonder what the ramifications of this are going to be, or like at Marvel, where they do those series of books by creators from that era of like, okay, well, we're just going to let Peter David write black suit Spider-Man stories until for however long he wants.
Right. Here's Mr. Fix-It stories by Peter David.
Yeah. So that makes me wonder if, depending on the sales of this, we're going to get 0 Hour era storylines today.
If I was a betting man, and occasionally I am, No, this was something to kickstart the way they ended the story into modern comics. Do you know what I mean? Like, because obviously, and it doesn't spoil the story takes place in modern times. Maybe they even say a couple issues ago on the modern run of Green Lantern. And when it's over, we're back to what that time is. And I think it's just like, no, we need something to relight this candle. And this did it. And if anybody says, oh, where did that happen? Go see the 30th anniversary of Zero Hour. That's our way of doing what we did. And, you know, they have free reign, if that makes sense. I do not see, because if they did, they would have done more stuff with, like, the what if world of the death of Superman, because that was way more popular than Zero Hour. They could have ran with more death of Superman all day and all night, but they didn't. So I don't see them running with more Zero Hour.
Okay.
That's just my opinion on it, my take.
And my only thing is, they left it open enough that if this book sells gangbusters, they certainly can do it. Right. It definitely is out of the realm of what DC's plans appear to be going forward toward the end of 2024 to 2025, to not live in this world of nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
But if people want to buy it, they can make it, right?
But what's the new Green Lantern storyline? What's it called? Like Core War or something like that? That's coming up. So I feel like this is going to tie, like what's going on with Kyle, if you will, is going to all tie into that.
You think it's going to tie in there?
Yeah, that it's like, because it's not Jeff Johns, so we can do whatever we want now, you know?
Right.
So I don't know. I feel that's going to at least touch on Core War or whatever the name is of the crossover that's coming up.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Like, I'll be okay either way, but that's just the way that it kind of felt to me there, the way that everything wrapped up, you know?
And I will say one last thing about this book, of the pinups in the back were lots of fun.
Yes.
The Starman pinup by Tony Harris, he was taking offers on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
And I was almost dragged into the art game.
I was going to say, luckily you're out of the art game, so you wouldn't be tempted by something like that, right?
To make an offer, and I looked at it, and I was like, do it. Because I would like, because I thought it was going to be maybe the cover for a Starman 30th anniversary book, because there was rumors of that.
Me too.
Right, but it ended up being in here, and I was like, I don't know what it went for, and I'm glad I didn't ask, Joe.
Oh, my goodness, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this, you know, they set it up in the book. You know, obviously you had like the 1 or 2 issues 30 years ago in regards to it, and they have the pinup in there by Nicola Scott.
Right.
Maybe it's wishful thinking on my part that I would read a Batgirl, Supergirl, Donna Troy, Wonder Woman team-up book from that era drawn by Nicola Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why I want it to happen.
I will laugh, though, that when they did the 0 Hour roll call, there was a certain character who didn't get put in the roll call. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Could this be the first book where Bargain Basement Batman, not as Batman, of course, and Jonah Hex appear in the same book?
I was going to say, yes, they do both appear in the same book, which is weird, because if this book gets sales, that's what I'm saying it's from yeah. Jonah Hex, you know?
The one panel of Jonah Hex.
Got me to buy it.
That's true. So that's what we read from this past week. Let's get into what we're looking forward to coming out this week. If you head over to longboxheroes.com every Tuesday around noon Eastern time, we put up the poll post, which is a link to all the books that are coming out this week. Whether you get your books in print, whether you get them sent to your home, whether you get them digitally, be forewarned, be forearmed, know what's coming out this week. Todd and I attempt to guess what the other is most looking forward to coming out this week. We are currently tied at 28 correct guesses apiece.
Yes, and the pool post today out exactly at noon and tweeted out exactly 1 minute afterwards.
There you go.
I'm looking over your slender read of a list, just like mine. And is the book you're looking forward to most? I'm probably going to yak this up. Is it Absolute Power #3?
It is.
Oh, yay.
And I think that's the same book you're looking forward to coming out this week as well.
It is not.
Oh, is it Blood Brother's mother?
Yes, even though it is late, I'm starting to get on, not liking late books.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Azzarello and who's Risso as the artist. I really like that first issue. So this is up my alley. Even though I think they cut it a little bit bigger and it won't fit in a magazine bag. So I'm cursing the comic gods right now.
All right. And this is from Distillery. Don't be a dope like me and think this comes out from Image for some reason.
Right, and don't let any distributor say that the books are canceled and they're not coming out. This is one of those books that maybe somebody was playing dirty pool and said, I don't know if that's ever going to come out. So.
And let me see here. Is that issue 2?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, because the Google link to the, when I Googled it, right?
Right.
It came up as a 404 error saying that this page is under attack, and I said, uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
No, but everything's all right.
Blimp attack, baby.
Oh, my goodness. So while you're over at longboxheroes.com, be sure to check out past episodes of this show, past episodes of Longbox Heroes After Dark, and, of course, our current ongoing reread of Gail Simone's Secret Six in Todd and Joe Have Issues. This week we were talking about issue 18, which is the wrap-up of the Blackest Night Secret Six Suicide Squad crossover. Co-writing credit here to John Ostrander, art by Jim Calafiore, and I mentioned it last week and I put it up. I love that cover of the kind of Blackest Night, kind of zombified Manhunter.
Right.
It's so cool. I just love the color scheme on it, Right.
I was always a sucker for the Manhunters, so I like the blue and the red. They were always good. And when I found out the first Rocket Red in Justice League International was a filthy Manhunter, I was so heartbroken. But then we got Dmitry Pushkin, and I was a happy man.
Yeah. So again, this is just the continuation of the fight that we've been seeing between the Black Lanterns. Finally, the Suicide Squad and the Secret Six have to get on the same page, put their differences aside, perhaps, to stop the onslaught of the Black Lanterns, of the sins of their own past, of people coming back after them. Scandal does break out of the flaming House of Secrets to have that moment with Amanda Waller. And we do get a cool bit there where maybe she stands up to Bane a little bit, where Amanda Waller's like, well, he's the one in charge, and Scandal more or less says, no, I let him think he's in charge.
Right. And
we get a shocked reaction on Bane's face. A lot of the issue is really focused around Black Alice having stolen Nightshade's powers and she's unable to use them. And a lot of the issue is based around that, right? Which I thought was surprising. But again, she's a new character. They're really trying to get her over as a legitimate threat. And as the Black Lanterns continues, it is revealed that maybe Waller had a hand in the selection of purposing some of the folks that became Black Lanterns. As Nightshade ends up in her little lab, they have a Manhunter there, but it's not completely ready to go. So Amanda Waller has to put on a Cerebro-like helmet to control the Manhunter. And that's how she is able to stop the Black Lanterns. And Deadshot gets one last shot in on Waller before he goes, but not the shot that would kill her, but the shot that would make her never forget him.
Right. Because I do like that they're like, oh, you're going to work for us. And they're like, no, we'd rather be, dead and free than like a patsy to you. So like the ones with us blow the brain bombs and the rest you can try and kill us and we'll see what happens. So I like that they stand up to her. That's kind of because nobody really ever did that in the Suicide Squad kind of a deal. And Deadshot gets that shot in. The one thing that I really like too is because obviously she had all the dead members of the Suicide Squad and they become Black Lanterns. They were in the prison. She was dissecting them and everything. And I forgot how much I loved the Adam Cray version of the Atom that was in Suicide Squad. Like he had the camouflage pants and a vest, and everybody, like, it was the biggest mystery in Suicide Squad of whether or not it was Ray Palmer. And it turns out it wasn't. And I was just such a sucker for that storyline. And when he shows up and they're talking, because they're like, even Cray, like Cray was the hero and you're dissecting him. And she's like, you got to worry about the heroes worse than the villains, because if they ever go bad, we're in trouble. I was like, all right, I like all of this and that storyline. And then the last thing that I'll mention, it's the last thing in the book too. There may be something that Waller says that I completely forgot about in this book. And I don't know if it's ever touched on again or not, Joe. I think this might be throwaway where they're like, oh, we won't have to worry about them. She's like, they haven't figured anything out. They haven't figured out that I'm Mockingbird yet, the new Mockingbird. And I'm like, I forgot that she said she was. I don't remember if we ever touch on that again.
And I haven't read enough Suicide Squad Amanda Waller stuff since.
Mm-hmm.
And she mentions that Deadshot knew what he was doing when he shot her, that he put the bullet in her in a spot where it was too close to her heart to operate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that they either have since retconned or forgotten about.
Right. So a lot of stuff here. Because I saw Gail Simone online the other day. She said she's going to take who Mockingbird was to her grave. And I didn't know if that was a joke or not, especially when the tweet literally came out the week I was reading this book. Do you know what I mean? Like, so as we get towards the end of this, I have to see, because I remember who the Mockingbird was in the New 52 run.
Yeah.
But I don't remember, like I said, where we go with this, because my memory of Secret Six isn't as good as some other stuff I read. But anyway.
So we got issue 19 next week, right?
Yep. If things go as planned, yes.
New story arc begins. Let me look at the cover. Just a standard straight up cover with our crew on it. Nothing about the plot given away there. I was buying some time to see if I could find Gail's tweet about Mockingbird that you had mentioned.
Right, I could find it if I had to.
Yeah. I was going to tweet at her on the show about it, but I don't think we have that much time left. The clock is ticking.
That is true.
Just like the clock is ticking on your time to go sign up for the ESPN Pigskin Pick'em. See how I did that?
You're like a pro, Joe.
I am like a pro. So we are just a week away from kickoff.
No, we are as this.
Oh, 2 days. 2 days. Oh my goodness.
So,
So go sign up. Go join the Longbox Heroes / soon to be named network group. Recognizing a lot of names in there. I don't know who Triple S is. I do know who Dazzler for the win is. I love looking at some of these folks' names. Somebody did their little thing as an emoji, which I appreciate. But we're at nearly 50 people, and
and we always get a bump like the day or before the day of. You know what I mean? Because people are like, why should I sign up beforehand? Like it's just work.
It's good to just get your picks in so you don't forget about it, or just to do the whole season and never think about it again.
I agree. I do hope we make it to 50. We'll see. And, good luck, Commander Ace Hunter. That's how I always say it. So, but
I'm looking up that Gail Simone tweet.
If you go to Gail Simone's Twitter, actually I think it might have been a joke because she has a picture of Dave Coulier there, but she says, people have wondered who Mockingbird is in Secret Six, but I'm taking that secret to my grave.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's a rib. Someone being silly.
Yep.
And you know me and bits. I love it.
You're famous for your bits.
I'm very famous for my bits. So hey, if you want to help us out, support us and the show and the whole thing, you can certainly do so by making a purchase from our store, a shirt, a pin, a sticker with our fancy logo on them. You can make any and all of your purchases through our eBay affiliate link. This page contains affiliate links for eBay. We may receive a small commission on purchases you make. You can use this affiliate link anytime you want to buy anything on eBay and support the show at the same time.
Yeah.
But the best way and the most rewarding way to support the show is to sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/longboxheroes. For as little as $1 a month, you are going to get 2 bonus episodes from Todd and myself. One is Previewing the Past, where we look at 30 years ago, this month's previews catalog. We're getting ready to record September 1994 this weekend. The other is Comic Book Oddities, where we look at some of the lesser-known, more maligned, maybe rightfully forgotten movies, TV shows, pilots, etc. From pre-Marvel Cinematic Universe, trying to get comics onto the silver end of the small screen, typically as a failure. If you did not get it at the $5 level already, this weekend everyone will be getting it on whatever tier you are on of our recent watch of the 1996 Cinemax original Vampirella, starring not Selma Hayek and definitely Roger Daltrey.
Yes, sir. As Dr. Acula.
You know, as we record this, I think either today or yesterday was Selma Hayek's birthday.
Yes, sir, and I was at full salute.
Okay. Also, with those subscriptions to the Patreon, you're going to get full scans of the previews catalogs, expert quality, professionally done of those previews catalogs that we talk about on Previewing the Past, dating all the way back to 1990. We're on 1994 now, so that's like 5 years worth of previews catalogs. Mm-hmm. We're good up until the end of 1997, so we're doing this for at least another 2 years, right?
Right. I'm locked in.
Locked in. If you're at the $5 level, you're going to get the Patreon shows 2 weeks before everyone else. And you're also going to get Longbox Heroes After Dark 2 days before everyone else, so that you can listen to these shows in the correct listening order. There may be something coming up with the Patreon soon if you're a subscriber. And you can certainly be a subscriber to this, for no cost. Just get the updates and stuff, because I do put the main show as you're listening to here. After Dark eventually does roll out there. If you're a podcatcher person and you want to get the show on one feed as opposed to 2 feeds, if you want to get the main show and After Dark and the Patreon shows on one feed, you could just sign up for the Patreon and get everything on one feed. If that's how you get your podcast. I don't know how you get your podcast. I know how I get my podcast. I'm the only one who does it this way. I have some sort of complex regarding that sort of thing. But apparently Patreon, with its daily, weekly, hourly changes, is doing a thing where it's going to arbitrarily reach out to you, the free folks on the Patreon, and offer you a subscription to the Patreon at a lower rate. Mm-hmm. I don't know. If you're one of the free folks, let me know if you got that. Let me know how that works out. Let me know if it makes you sign up, right?
Right.
But any paid level, of course, is going to get you access to the soon-to-be-named network Discord. All the shows in the soon-to-be-named network have their own channels, all sorts of interests, lots of fun people, lots of interesting discussion, lots of cool stuff going on over there.
Yep.
Lastly but not leastly, Todd, have you gotten your 12-pack of watermelon Fanta yet?
No, I can't find any place locally that sells cans of Fanta. Yes. Like singularly. I haven't looked for the 12-pack. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But
I think that's the only way that you can get the cans, unless you want to pay an exorbitant price on eBay for them.
Right.
But next time that I go out to my local green grocer, not a sponsor, mm-hmm. I am going to look for those. They might be sold at like more of the boutique shops around here.
Right.
But the only thing that I've seen is the 16-ounce bottles of the green Beetlejuice sour apple soda.
I don't want none of that, Joe. I only want my sweet, sweet Winona Ryder can.
Yes.
But and I have to look into what was it? Was it the Domino? What was the cups?
I saw a thing about the cups, and that there was supposed to be a Domino's, and we actually ordered from Domino's this past week. Mm-hmm. And I went in and I said, "Do you guys have Beetlejuice cups?" And they looked at me like I was speaking another language. They didn't know what I was talking about. So I don't know if because sometimes those things will happen where it'll be like, "Oh, this is the Domino's promotion only in Argentina," or like, "Hey, you could get this delicious, life-size replica of Lydia Dietz that comes to your house in Uruguay," right? So there's always this small print on those tie-ins.
Mm-hmm.
But if anyone out there lives in one of those countries where they sell the Lydia Dietz, Winona Ryder, Beetlejuice collector's cups, let us know, and we'll point Todd in that direction.
Right. And did you see, I posted it in the Discord, and it's where you would think it is, but all 4 seasons of the Beetlejuice cartoon are available for free on, guess where, Joe?
Well, it would have to be the greatest streaming service of all time, Tubi, until all are one.
Yep, Tubi, as I said in the Discord, for the win with the 4 seasons of Beetlejuice. And I might power watch through all that.
Oh, my goodness.
To get me ready for the thing, because I unironically love that, because I remember that being a cartoon filled with puns and wordplay, Joe. Oh, my God, so good.
Right up your alley.
Yes,
so are you going to get a chance to see the Beetlejuice sequel this weekend?
I don't know if I am or not. I'm going to try.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I do, it'll probably be the way I was meant to watch Winona Ryder movies, alone in the theater. But it might be, because I don't know. I know I'm still trying to get to see Alien Romulus before it goes out of theaters, but that was making some money. So I think it's going to stick around for a while. So
I think Beetlejuice is going to do okay. I haven't looked at like the Metacritic or any of those sort of things.
Right. But what I mean is, like, when it comes to the movie that's coming out this week and the movie that's like almost a month old, I tend to lean towards that's the one I'm going to go to first and then see Beetlejuice. But who knows? I may see it before next week. Why, you planning on it?
There's a chance Sunday afternoon I might get a chance to see it.
Okay. You and the family, or are you doing this just for the show?
So it might be me and the family, but there was discussion on if it would be too intense for my 8 and 5-year-old niece and nephew to come with us.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of him and Han of weighing things there.
Mm-hmm.
If the decision is made that they could hack it, we might all go. If they can't hack it, then it might just be me, April, and Asa.
Right. If you go Sunday, just text me that you're going. And that way, it'd be like, oh, you know what? If I'm not going to Romulus, I'll make it my business to see it Sunday or Monday, if that makes any sense.
Gotcha.
I'll be like, oh, I'll do it for the show. There's nothing. And when it doesn't start this week, does it? Penguin
actually rolls out it rolls out on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they're doing the bit where it's like
10 episodes.
All 10 episodes. Mm-hmm. Or we're going to do 3, or if it's going to be weekly, or however it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go look at the IMDb. Now, I want to say, I originally had it in my thing as this Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I go to IMDb, the little teaser poster for it, says the 19th.
That's what I have when it comes to Wikipedia, the most trusted source in DC Comics TV schedules.
Yeah, so I guess it is the 19th.
The 19th. And then, according to mine...
That's the same weekend that Agatha comes out.
Right, and then it jumps... The second episode is on September 29th, so it's 10 days later. So I'm wondering if is there something about Sunday to September 19th, or
Yeah, so it looks like the premiere is on a Thursday,
and
then all the subsequent episodes are on Sundays,
which is really weird.
Yeah,
unless there's something big that night. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know it's not like if it was like the World Series or something, like Game 7, they try not to, bump it up against like big event things. But I can't think of anything that's in September on the 19th.
Yeah. Well, like I said, so Agatha was supposed to be the 19th, but of course they're doing it the day early, right?
Right.
It makes me wonder if they attempted to like kind of move it to go head to head with Agatha to take counter programming sort of thing away from it.
Maybe,
right?
You never know. I'm not an empty suit. I don't know how they think.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, we'll figure all that out when we get to it.
Yeah, so hopefully we get a chance to see Beetlejuice this weekend, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much everyone for listening. This was episode 500. No, that was the page. That was After Dark. I'm not going to edit that. It was episode 726 of Longbox Heroes. For Todd, this is Joe saying, catch y'all here next week.
Remember, be a faucet, not a drain.
Woo!
You're listening to the soon-to-be-named network, the Lamborghini of podcast networks.
The Rob is a Longbox hero. The Rob is a Longbox hero. He gives us five stars.